In the winter of 1939, deep inside the snowy forests of eastern Finland, a quiet man with a calm face and a steady hand stepped into history. His name was Simo Häyhä. At only 5 feet 3 inches tall and armed with a simple rifle, he would become the most feared sniper the world had ever seen. Before the war, Simo lived a peaceful life as a farmer and hunter. He preferred silence, routines, and the quiet rhythm of the woods. But when Finland was invaded by the Soviet Union, he put on a white camouflage suit, picked up his trusty rifle, and walked into the forest to defend his homeland. By the end of the first 2 weeks, the Soviets would give him a name, whispered with fear: the White Death. The story begins early on a freezing morning. The forest was still, covered in deep snow, with temperatures dropping well below zero. A Soviet patrol moved through the trees, unaware that a sniper was watching them. The lead soldier noticed a strange shape in the snow, a small, smooth depression. Before he had time to react, he collapsed without a sound. The rest of the patrol panicked, firing wildly into the trees. But the forest remained silent. No muzzle flash, no movement, no sound. A second man fell, then a third. When the last soldier fled in terror, the sniper stood from a snowbank where he had been lying completely still. It was Simo. This was only the beginning. During the first 2 days of action, Simo killed 22 Soviet soldiers. His shots were precise, deliberate, and steady. He would fire, relocate, and wait. There was no frustration and no excitement, just calm focus. On the 3rd day, the Soviets sent a trained counter-sniper to hunt him down, but Simo was already tracking him. He detected the slightest glint of metal reflecting sunlight in the trees, a nearly invisible clue. The enemy sniper fired first, and the round tore through Simo's sleeve. But Simo remained calm, aimed carefully, and fired once. When Finnish troops later found the body, they discovered an expertly camouflaged hide, but it wasn't good enough to escape Simo's eye. By the end of day 3, more than 30 Soviets had fallen. Their morale began to collapse. Soldiers complained they were being hunted by a ghost. Some refused to go into the forest at all. But Simo's most remarkable days were still ahead. Day 4 brought a small Soviet hunting unit moving in tight formation through the forest. They moved carefully, rifles ready, clearly sent to flush out hidden Finnish snipers. But Simo had already dug himself into a small firing position behind a fallen tree. When they approached, he fired with his usual calm precision. The leader fell first. 4 others soon followed. The survivors retreated in fear, leaving their fallen behind. On day 5, Christmas Day, the temperatures dropped even lower. Snowflakes blew sideways through icy winds. Simo had eaten nothing for nearly 2 days, yet he continued to move quietly through the forest. He located a Soviet sniper nest, identified their positions from subtle signs in the snow, and killed all 3 within seconds. Later, he stopped a 2-man patrol. 7 kills were added by the end of the day. Day 6 began with heavy Soviet artillery pounding the forest. The ground shook as shells exploded across the snow. The Soviets were targeting the forest sections where they believed Simo was hidden. After the bombardment, a search party of around 40 men moved in, sweeping between the trees. Simo positioned himself beneath a thin layer of snow. As the patrol passed, one soldier came so close that Simo could hear him breathing. When the last man was in range, Simo fired upward. Chaos broke out as he rolled to a new position and shot 4 more men. By the end of the search operation, 6 Soviets lay dead. Simo now had 47 confirmed kills. What happened next would lift him from skilled defender to living legend. Day 7 began with near-perfect conditions. The sky was clear. The light was sharp. Simo set himself on a slope overlooking a narrow valley. Soon, a Soviet squad of 11 soldiers appeared, marching in single file. They had no idea they were walking into a lethal viewpoint. Simo fired once. The lead soldier dropped. The others scrambled, but the shots continued. Calm, spaced, deliberate. Within minutes, all 11 men were dead. Simo repositioned throughout the day, taking additional targets. By sunset, he reached 67 confirmed kills. Day 8 brought more Soviet artillery and higher tension across the lines. Simo moved under the cover of smoke and falling snow, killing a machine gun team before they could open fire. He also eliminated a team of snipers attempting to infiltrate behind Finnish positions. His total rose to 74. A blizzard struck on day 9. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Most snipers would have stayed hidden in weather like this, but Simo used the storm to his advantage. The wind masked his movements, and the snow softened the sounds of his rifle. Soviet units walked blindly through the storm, unable to see more than a few feet ahead. 15 of them never made it through the day. By the end of the 9th day, Simo reached 89 confirmed kills. Day 10 was when the Soviet fear became official. Reports described soldiers refusing to enter the forest, firing at shadows, and shouting warnings about a white ghost. Some commanders believed the Finnish military had deployed multiple elite snipers. But it was only one man. Simo ambushed a Soviet platoon of about 30 men crossing a frozen creek. He fired with perfect timing, striking the officer first, then the machine gunner, then others trying to take cover behind shallow snow mounds. 9 men died in minutes. This brought his total to 78 kills in a single week, still unmatched in military history. But the Soviets were far from giving up. They sent more units, more snipers, more artillery, and Simo faced the most dangerous period of his campaign. Day 11 began with deep tension in the air. The Soviets had changed their tactics. Instead of scattered patrols, they sent coordinated assault groups supported by trained snipers. Simo immediately sensed the shift. The forest felt more controlled, more dangerous. That morning, he spotted fresh footprints, 3 sets, moving in a careful, spread-out formation. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were counter-snipers. Their spacing, the pattern of their steps, and the direction told Simo everything he needed to know. They were hunting him. He moved quietly to higher ground, watching for any sign of movement. Soon, he found something unusual, a perfectly shaped mound of snow that didn't match the natural landscape. It was a decoy. If an inexperienced sniper fired at it, he would immediately reveal his position. Simo studied the area around the decoy. A tiny reflection near a birch tree caught his attention. A sniper was hiding just beside the decoy. Simo fired once, and the man fell without a sound. A second sniper responded instantly, firing towards Simo's position. The shot hit the snow close to him, showing Simo just how skilled this opponent was. The shot was clean, well-timed, and came from an unexpected angle. Simo did not return fire immediately. Instead, he slid behind a rock and waited. Minutes passed. The cold pressed against his skin. Still, he waited. Then he heard it, a faint shift of weight, barely enough to be heard. It revealed the second sniper's position. Simo fired and killed him with a single round. But there was still a third sniper somewhere nearby. He was patient, silent, and well-trained. For nearly an hour, neither man moved. The cold grew sharper. Frost formed along Simo's coat. He lay still, listening. Period. Finally, the third sniper made a mistake. He shifted his foot slightly, brushing snow off a branch. It was barely visible, but it was enough. Simo fired and ended the duel. By midday, all three snipers were down. This was the moment the Soviet command realized something terrifying. Their best snipers, operating together, could not defeat a single Finnish marksman. For the first time, they understood that they were not hunting Simo. Simo was hunting them. Day 12 continued with more sniper engagements. Simo found another group attempting to move behind Finnish positions. Through careful tracking, he discovered their location and eliminated them before they knew he was there. By day 13, Simo had become more aggressive. Instead of waiting to be found, he started seeking out Soviet snipers. He climbed ridges, circled behind their lines, and used the terrain to his advantage. Early that morning, he spotted two snipers lying prone behind rocks below him. They believed they were protected. They never saw the shot that killed them. Later that day, he killed 5 more snipers in separate engagements, raising the total number of trained Soviet marksmen lost to him into the double digits. Soviet commanders grew increasingly desperate. Reports came in of soldiers refusing to move forward until their officers personally inspected the area. Some cried, others fired blindly at snowbanks. The White Death had become a psychological weapon as much as a physical threat. But the Soviet army had one final tactic left, a massed infantry assault, designed not just to break Finnish defenses, but to overwhelm any sniper who stood in the way. This led directly to the defining moment of Simo's story, day 14. The tension began in the early morning when the forest suddenly grew still. Simo immediately sensed something was wrong. The usual distant gunfire and scattered movement were absent. The air felt heavier. The silence felt forced. Then, the artillery began. Shells exploded across the forest, breaking trees apart and throwing snow into the air. The ground shook violently. Simo moved quickly between cover, dodging flying debris. The Soviets were not targeting general Finnish positions. They were specifically trying to destroy any place where a sniper could hide. After the bombardment, the infantry wave appeared. Hundreds of Soviet soldiers advanced through the forest, shouting orders, firing rifles, and throwing grenades. It was one of the largest assaults in that section of the front. Simo positioned himself behind a boulder and began firing steadily. His accuracy did not waver, even in the face of overwhelming numbers. He killed one after another, slowing the Soviet advance, buying crucial time for Finnish units to withdraw and reposition. He relocated frequently, moving between rocks, fallen trees, and natural ridges. But the Soviets pushed forward relentlessly. For every man he dropped, more pushed through the trees. In the middle of this chaos, a Soviet soldier, carrying an automatic rifle, began firing explosive rounds in Simo's direction. One round struck the nearby snow, sending fragments into the air. Simo shifted, trying to spot the shooter. Then it happened. An explosive round hit him directly in the lower left jaw. The impact threw him backward. His vision blurred. He fell into the snow, unable to speak, unable to fully understand the damage. Blood filled his mouth. Part of his face was torn open. Finnish soldiers rushed to pull him from the battlefield. They carried him away as more explosions hit the ground around them. Simo faded in and out of consciousness. His breathing slowed. The world darkened. For 6 days, he lay unconscious. When he woke up in a military hospital, he could barely move. But he did manage to write a question on a piece of paper. Is Finland safe? Despite the severity of his wounds, Simo survived. Doctors rebuilt parts of his jaw and face. He never returned to frontline combat. But his actions had already shaped the outcome of many battles. By the time he was wounded, Simo had more than 500 total enemy casualties attributed to him, through both rifle and close engagements, with over 100 confirmed sniper kills in a short period of time, an achievement unmatched in modern warfare. By the time Simo regained his strength, the Winter War had ended. Against overwhelming odds, Finland had survived. The Soviet Union had pushed forward with enormous numbers and heavy equipment, but they had been stopped by fierce resistance. Harsh winter conditions, and the determination of soldiers like Simo Häyhä. When the war was over, Simo did not seek attention. He returned to rural life, choosing peace over praise. He spent his days farming, hunting, raising dogs, and living quietly in the countryside near the Finnish-Russian border. He rarely spoke about the war. When asked about his incredible marksmanship, he simply replied that it came from practice and patience. He never referred to himself as a hero. He never bragged about his achievements. He never sought to build a legend. But the legend formed around him anyway. Military historians studied his tactics. Snipers around the world analyzed his shooting methods, camouflage skills, and mental discipline. Soldiers who met him were struck by how humble and calm he was. He had performed extraordinary feats on the battlefield, yet he carried none of the arrogance or bravado that many expected from someone with his record. In his later years, Simo occasionally gave interviews. His voice remained soft and steady. When asked how he felt about being the most effective sniper in modern history, he responded with a slight smile and said he simply did what he was asked to do, nothing more. He lived until the age of 96. Even in his old age, he was described as sharp-minded, polite, and peaceful. The scars of war remained on his face, but not in his spirit. Simo Häyhä's story is not only about marksmanship or battlefield skill. It is about discipline, endurance, and the quiet strength of an ordinary man placed in extraordinary circumstances. He never saw himself as special, yet the world remembers him as the most efficient sniper ever recorded, a man whose patience and calm under pressure altered the course of entire battles. To the Soviets who faced him, he was a ghost in the snow, a man they feared even without seeing. To the Finns, he became a symbol of resistance and national courage. And to history, he stands as a reminder that sometimes the most remarkable heroes are the ones who never ask to be recognized. Simo Häyhä entered the Winter War as a simple farmer. He left it as the White Death, a living legend whose story continues to be told across generations. His actions, carried out in silence and discipline, echo through time. He remains one of the most iconic figures of World War II, not because he sought fame, but because he earned it through skill, sacrifice, and unbreakable resolve. And in the quiet forests of Finland, where the snow still falls and the pines stand tall, the memory of the man in white, hiding his breath, steadying his rifle, and defending his home, lives on. A man who changed the course of a war. A man who stood alone against thousands. A man whose legacy continues to inspire. Simo Häyhä, the White Death, a legend carved into the snow and remembered forever.